session. Like Bjorn was saying, I'm coming from a BPM experience. I'm actually in Accenture, part of the digital group today, and particularly I've now evolved into the social space as well. We're working in the social area very much. My experience comes in the BPM, if you will, from the CRM side and customer service as well. So it's where we have applied BPM, let's say, to solve particular business use cases, just to give you sort of a context. Now, we will go through, I would like to take you through a few questions and answers around what BPM is today, what's the challenges around BPM we see, and where social comes in to fill in these gaps. Now, one of the things, and this is a diagram tries to paint a picture, overall picture around what's the future of BPM is that BPM technologies as they are today, even in their more recent evolutions, they will tend to address a top layer of the key things that navigate around the business process. If we think about information, data, people, and the actual execution of things and tasks and the process. So BPM tools capture the let's say if you look at activities, they will capture milestone activities. Typically, a good design will capture milestone activities. It won't go to the detail because if you've been through some BPM experiences, if you try to portray the whole process, even if it is very deterministic, it becomes unreadable, it becomes unmanageable, incommunicatable to others. And so you tend to gravitate around the tasks that are meaningful and milestones, like decisions, certain points of data capture, and these kind of elements, and devoid from the menial tasks, or even the ones that are not so structured and you don't know, so you really keep them out. Same goes for people. Key people are involved in the process, and structured data is part of it, but unstructured data typically is not part of it. And so there's a whole lot of activities going on behind this that are not part of the BPM solution, not part of what the BPM is managing. And if we go back to the core of BPM 2.0, which is anchored very much on transparency of the process, to give transparency to business and everybody, and the same language in execution and in definition time, there's a lot of activities getting missed. So there is a gap here in terms of what you surface in terms of a BPM tool. And this is the gap where we believe social as a technology, social collaboration, is very much able to fulfill. Because these capabilities are inherent to any social collaboration platform. They're there to deal with unstructured tasks, with unstructured work, collaborative approaches, and all sorts of data that is not tables. It's files, scans, and other things. And as businesses are evolving into the digital world, meaning more of the interactions we do in our business processes are digital in nature, what happens in reality is that a massive information going on through these channels already, and BPM is relatively disconnected from it. So this is the gap that we see is there to be closed from the BPM side. Now, there are, of course, when we talk about this in different technologies, all vendors are in different states, and several of them are going in this direction, and even beyond, depends on the type of BPM we're talking about. But the reality is one that is causing a bit more of questions and are more interested in understanding is adaptive case management, which is an evolution of it's a getting together of different approaches, in particular enterprise content management, BPM, and social collaboration. So adaptive case management has gotten continues to get a lot of attention. It's not the end of the story. It's another evolution, another step in the way, and we'll see here a bit more about our thinking behind this and where we see this is valuable. But the reality is, it merges these concepts. It brings in content management to deal with non-structured data. It brings in social collaboration to deal with all the activities that are not structured, are not even able to be described in a BPM or even a BRM, the business rules engine, if you will. And then case management, which essentially um, is driven by a philosophy of goal achievement. And this is a key point of change between BPM and ACM, which is orientation towards goals. So case management tools are goal-driven. That is, they serve a purpose around a process, be it solving an inquiry from a customer or helping an employee set a certain process through its paces. And within case management, the focus is not on the process. Its focus is around the data, the tasks that go around it, and the key intervenients and the rules that govern how they can interrelate or at least block certain things from happening. So it's a focus on goal and a focus on the case. So if we bring this all together, you'll see that adaptive case management is, in fact, like I said in the beginning, is going in the direction of filling in those gaps. Okay, but it's on the path towards that. Now, so how does it compare? No, so how is ACM different from BPM or as an evolution of BPM? This is it's an eye-level assessment for us to go through it here. If we look through certain criteria around a process management tool, be it its structure, how flexible it is to respond to business needs, how flexible it is to decouple design time from runtime. So to change, let's say, the process and adapt. What kind of process it actually supports quite well. How the process control flows, system organization happens, and the type of investment. We see there on the left side the BPM and BPM 2.0, and basically characterize, and here on the right side, the adaptive case management, which falls more under this verb. So what we see with adaptive case management is it's not about the process, it's about the case, the data, and everything around it, so the goal. It doesn't split design time from runtime. It's adaptable as you evolve and the processes are running. The adaptive case management, you can adapt to the conditions. You can change the structure. And BPM 2.0 can also, to a certain extent, but you can't go beyond the well-defined structure that the BPM imposes. It's much more flexible to change, of course, because we don't have to describe the process. We just describe the case and the rules and the tasks and the intervenience. And so and I'm being simplistic here for the sake of 20 minutes. But in the reality, it's much more adaptable. It's flexible. It's not rigid. And we see, in terms of focused process, the type of process it deals with well, that's where we see the difference. If any of you went through a BPM implementation knows, it's very good for repetitive processes or processes that are mature, stable. They will, the chances that they are subject to changes or to dynamics of intervenience in the process makes it good for BPM. So in these cases where the stability, where we know there's a very well-defined rule that can set the processes, that's BPM 2.0 is brilliant, I would say. It really drives transparency. We've seen that in clients, business, if they want to see the process, they read the process the same way as a technical guy. So there's a unified language around it. It's quite good. But if you go beyond that into processes that require dynamics of participants, of tasks, and so on, it doesn't really respond that well. And that's where adaptive case management fits in, addresses much better. So it ends up being very interesting for knowledge-intensive process, for processes that are not structured, that are more free-form. But you know very well the type of data and the goal you're trying to achieve with that process. And the other, I would focus here also more is on the investment side. So ACM is lower on the investment side. I mean, if any of you went through a normal BPM project, if you, for example, around product management, put a BPM process to handle project management in a company, you have to discuss with a lot of people to get that thing good, and in a way that it won't, it will function. Same goes for customer relationship processes or that involve long sales cycles. To give you just another example, whereby the number of intervenients in the process, is very large. It's commercial people, legal people, finance people, all of these involved in the process to get a deal or a contract out, right? These kind of processes, it takes a lot of time to design well, properly. And if you want to put it on a BPM engine, and you'll get in there the parts of it which are the organization sees as very stable. You definitely will get in, and they will recognize that process, but you left a million of activities out of it. And it takes a lot of effort to get to that point where it functions. With adaptive, no. You go about describing the case. You have to be sure of the data you want to capture, the type of activities, the roles of the intervenients, and the rules that govern some authorities, let's say, around certain tasks. And then it's flexible. The big advantage, which is not portrayed here, and I would like to emphasize that, is there is a huge advantage to this. If you think of BPM as structured process, well-defined intervenience, ACM is about tasks, goals, information. What happens in these two realities is, on the one hand, you can drive some metrics around the process. The process is average execution of a process took 10 minutes. If the SLA was 2 hours, we're fine. If it takes 3 hours, big chunks and we had this problem with a client, big chunks where a problem might be, because why it took 3 hours, you can see the big tasks, but you have nothing else, right? With ACM, you have all the trail of things that happened from beginning to end, which means you can form some, and this is a bit more of, we're going to hand over to the other topic. You can form a very you can form an understanding of why the process happened like that. You have the information for it. In BPM, you don't. So your ability to act when you're having a BPM process, it has to comply with certain SLA, and it's not giving the SLA back. You go in and you check and you see the big chunks of tasks and you see, okay, the problem is around these tasks. You then have to go and talk to people to understand, how did this run? With ACM, that doesn't happen. You have the history of interactions there. So you can really just study it, and then you go talk to people, but you're much more informed when you go back to them. So this is the big difference, I would say, around these two approaches. ACM really captures certain elements of BPM, but it takes it and evolves it to fill in the gaps that it has. Now, how can social interactions enhance all of this, right? So what's the role of social here in the middle? And here I would say there's two types of social I would like to bring on here. One is the social collaboration side of things, as in a platform, a tool for all of us involved in the process to exchange information in a more ad hoc fashion. And then there's a external, if you will, outside of the company, social media, which generates information that is potentially a trigger for events in the company, right? And we see these two things appearing in this space. There is the integration with the collaborative aspect, both on the development time, let's say thinking the process, defining the process, as well as on the runtime, which means executing processes. And on the other hand, integration with social media technologies that are out there in the market, and we see this in different vendors already coupling this in practical terms into case management. So on the social collaboration side, what this means is alongside a case, you're able to tag it because you need to follow that case, although you might not be, you had a task on it, you need to follow it. Things like discussions that are associated with the process. So for example, if you're handling a client contract, you can readily see a discussion space with other people involved in the contract, that you need to exchange information. So it's much more productive, and it's within the context of the case with all the data that is involved in it. Plugging in RSS feeds, integrating with email, which means I have all email exchanges associated with the case as well. So this is where the social collaboration aspect comes in. It's not a silo. Like you have a case tool, you go to your email, and then you go to a social tool, do something. Adaptive case management is bringing this together. So you're in your case space, and you have the social tool there. It's integrated with email, and you have all these things accessible. This is the biggest difference when we talk about social collaboration. If we look to the outside, to the external side, the integration here comes in the form of, I would say, opening cases. And that's what we see also today. I mean, either from open microblogging like Twitter or existing external communities around social tools or YouTube's whatever. The reality is today, most solutions that somehow go into the adaptive case management space are able to plug into these channels. And these channels are important because many times a process originates with a client, originates with somebody outside a company. And you can, with this kind of integration, put the case working based on a certain event. A very common case happening these days around customer service. So if a customer is complaining on Twitter, today is very easy in a customer service center, a case is open and somebody follows up on it, right? So you don't wait to have some mail popping up that something happened, or in fact, if you're listening to these channels, you're capturing things, events you wouldn't capture in any other way. So these are two sides to the social story, which are very relevant. Now, is adaptive case management the new BPM for the knowledge worker? Yeah, we think so. I mean, it definitely, like we saw before, adaptive case management addresses the knowledge-intensive process in the sense of unstructured, and covers the non-structured data as well, which is key in knowledge processes. It's key in any process that you need to make, decisions with involving data that is not just coming from your table on your client system or your products or whatever. And like I said before, it's a key point here. It enables the organization to learn. The fact that there is auditability and these tools keeps, all the tasks that are run, not the only the ones that you've defined are captured, like it happens in BPM, allows you to learn and adapt the process and evolve it. Now, what does it mean for organizations? If we think about this evolution of structure process focus to goal-oriented case with a focus on the case data, what does it mean for organizations? I mean, it means you need to get closer to the client, if you will, or the one that is the beneficiary of the process. So if we're talking about a contract process, client here being the actual client, if we talk about the product, is one that manages the products. And the fact we're being goal-driven means the proximity with them has to be very, very close. I mean, it has to be very close. We need to understand the goals behind their needs for a process or for a case to be able to properly drive it. And the challenge with BPM was already there because in a sense, as we wanted to drive BPM forward, we needed transaction process-focused people, and most organizations really aren't organized by process, which was very hard. All organizations are siloed. They have a definition of processes, but they don't typically drive the business by process, and it makes it hard. And many organizations evolved to have at least process champions and these kind of roles that make sure that there is some governance coming from somebody that has a stake in the process. With adaptive case management, it goes one step up because you're not focusing anymore on the execution of the process, but you have to focus on what the party that is the beneficiary of it is looking for. And that's a bigger challenge in our view towards this. So governance in this case, and the challenge here being you need to really involve those very close to whom the process serves. Clients, internal products, whatever it's the process is about. Questions?
Great, thank you.
No, thank you.
So, well, just some question with Juan. Well, yeah, we exchanged already microphones. But Juan, can you come to me? So we just discussed a little bit, a short Q&A. You take this one because
Okay,
this
it's a direction. Okay.
So we've seen the two sides, so BPM and adaptive case management. So who is involved in this? So because actually at this conference, you're always the external guy somehow, because this is very much centered around the social idea, the free collaboration idea, and still the adaptive case management is still, from the social perspective, still very structured. So who's involved in this and who's driving this?
I mean, the sponsorship is close to the business, clearly. I mean, it has to be, and even for social, when we think about social, social devoid of a sponsorship from a very clear business goal will not reach anywhere, any place. And what happens with adaptive case management in the cases that are coming, they're coming from business like customer support, like internal process execution around product management, or internal employee services, for example, or help desks, if you will. This is the biggest, I would say, the biggest space.
And how is this implemented, the adaptive case management? So because actually I would think that well, I was always thinking that the connection between social networking and BPM, that is the implementation of the adaptive case management. So if I implement or integrate the BPM system into the social networking, that I see all the actions being done within the process, and I can easily exit the process and ask my network on the social networking sphere about a problem that appeared within the process, that this is the kind of adaptive case management. Is this right?
Well, it's extending BPM with social. Adaptive case management is, in its definition, it's flipping it, like I was saying earlier, it's flipping it around. It's putting it around the process, not around the process, but around the goal and around the task. So it's free. It's not driven by heavy structure like BPM is, right? And that's the big. You will find vendors in different spaces. In that space, you'll find vendors in different maturity levels. That's the reality, with slightly different approaches.
Great.
Yeah.
There are questions, so now we have to change.
This looks like its genesis is in customer satisfaction, customer service systems, if I read. Do you see that's its main application, or do you see it working in other bits of a business process?
It should work in. It will.
And such as?
It works in other contexts.
Such as?
Shared service centers, for example, employee turned into internal service centers.
Okay, but that's a similar structure to a customer service.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. But I'm talking to you with what we see now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not
enough. The potential. That's a different.
Okay.
And again, if you'd ask a personal opinion, there's other evolutions behind adaptive that will probably respond better.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. It seems to be very centered around the task, the notion of task. Do you think it's part of it, or can it also be centered around something that's not a task?
Not a task with social, but the notion of task is there. I mean, because at the end of the day, it is an approach based on case management, and tasks are critical for establishing certain accountability, let's say, points, or because you need to put rules around certain tasks, so that people, there are certain processes you cannot just be free flow. You need to put some rules, and that's where it comes.
Could you, for example, instead of doing the accountability with a task, you could do it with a responsible person, which is a bit different?
Yeah, you could do it with responsible in a social context, right? And again, that's the advantage of plugging social into this is exactly that one, because you have an auditability, traceability of the different people involved and what actually they were doing. in the process itself.
Great. Thank you, Juan.